Hey everyone, it's Jacqueline from Pixie Dust PhD. In today's video, we will be discussing what is, in my opinion, probably the most important item that you'll pack for your trip to Walt Disney World. I am excluding obvious things here like medications, your phone, wallet, and keys. And we are talking about physical items. If we're talking more philosophically, I would say you need to pack your patience, pack your kindness, and pack your realistic expectations. But as far as things you will physically bring with you in your suitcase, I would say the most important is your shoes. Most other items that get lost can be replaced. It is a pain, but it's not the end of the world. And you can replace shoes if you have to. You can go buy a new pair, of course. That being said, they will be brand new and not broken in, which can result in some less than comfortable days when you're on your feet doing 20,000+ steps in the parks at Walt Disney World. I always try to settle on shoe choices at least a couple of months before my trip. That way, if I do end up buying a new pair, I have some time to break them in. Today, we'll be going over some of my favorite shoe brands that I do and do not bring to the parks. And we'll also talk about how many pairs I pack and the logic behind that. Stay tuned. Before we begin with shoes, I think it's important to talk about support. Just within the past couple of years, I started putting inserts in all my shoes, and gosh, does it feel so much better on my back, my hips, basically my whole body. Specifically, I use these easy fit inserts from Superfeet. They're basically 3/4 length, so you don't have to worry about cutting them to fit exactly. And then it's very easy for me to move them in and out of various pairs of shoes. Other than high heels, flip-flops, or other shoes that don't really have a back edge, these fit well in all of my shoes, certainly all of my tennis shoes. I even put them in ballet flats. If you've got some of those general body aches, and frankly this happened to me in my mid-20s, I want to say, if not earlier, you don't have to be old to benefit from getting inserts. Definitely make your way down to a local running store and ask them for their suggestions. My local running store suggested these Superfeet inserts, and frankly I think that they have been absolutely wonderful. For all the products we're talking about today, I will leave links in the description below. Do note some of those are affiliate links. Any affiliate link will have appropriate details in the description, but basically this means if you use it, you're using my link, I have referred you, and then you'll usually get some bonus and I'll get some kind of bonus. You pay nothing extra shopping through my link compared to just Googling and finding it on your own. Let's get to the shoes. Arguably your best choice for those really long days at theme parks is a very supportive shoe and one that's designed for this kind of impact. In my opinion, that's really trainers. Usually I have 2 pairs of trainers at any given time. One's a little bit heftier and really made for squats and other sort of isometric exercises, and then I've got a lighter pair for running. Currently my trainers are ASIC brands, and then my running shoe is a Nike Free. These are lightweight, which is nice, but even when I put those Superfeet inserts in, I find that they aren't the most supportive. If I was going to take a trainer style shoe to the parks, I would definitely go with something a little heftier like these ASICs. That being said, I actually don't take trainers with me to the parks. I don't really take them on vacation anywhere. This is a personal choice. I just think they're kind of ugly and I don't want my trainers in all of my vacation pictures. Absolutely, I make the personal choice to sacrifice some function for form, meaning I would rather have a cuter shoe that's maybe a little bit less supportive. I don't really do the whole athleisure look in my day-to-day life and definitely not on vacation, so I just think the trainers look out of place with most of my outfits. The tennis shoes I wear most in my day-to-day life are going to be Vans and Keds, so these are sort of lower profile, slimmer tennis shoes. I like the way they look. I think they're cute, fashionable, and fun. I wear them with jeans, I wear them with dresses, shorts, whatever. As long as the color palettes go, I generally think that they look good. And I wear them to do errands and run around town, but I wouldn't wear them for 25,000 steps a day. I just don't think they're supportive enough for the parks. I see people all the time in Walt Disney World wearing shoes like Vans and Converse, and I want to know what their secret is because I definitely cannot do that. I have worn a different style of Keds to the parks though, both in my 2017 trip and my 2019 trip. Both of these are from their Studio line. It's a little bit buried on the website these days, but if you go into the search bar and type Studio, you can bring up the full collection. In 2017, I had gray slip-ons that looked a lot like your standard slip-on Vans, but they were super light and really supportive. I wore those shoes to the ground. I wore them in Disney World, I wore them a ton after that, and eventually they were just trash and I had to throw them out. It's definitely a shoe I would order again though. I found it really comfortable, lightweight, breathable, and I didn't have any rubbing on my heel. For my 2019 trip, instead of reordering that same gray slip-on, I went for this white tennis shoe. It's still part of the Studio line. It has these fun gold accents on the back, so I thought they would be fashionable and fun, and they are, and they're really comfortable too. I'm not sure if I'll end up bringing these with me for my next trip, as they are now over 2 years old and are starting to get pretty worn down. But for me, the Keds Studio line has worked out really well. I highly suggest it. Next, let's talk about Allbirds. I actually have 2 pairs. These are Tree Skippers, and these are Wool Pipers. I've had the Tree Skippers for a couple of years now, and I did take them on my last trip to Walt Disney World. The Wool Pipers are a newer purchase. I like both of these shoes. I like the Allbirds brand a lot. There's no rubbing. They are pretty much comfortable right out of the box, which I find to be relatively rare. The Skipper is a pretty slim, low-profile tennis shoe, just like my preference with the Vans and the Keds. It's not the most supportive thing in the world though. You can see it's pretty bendy. I do slip my inserts in here. The heel cup is not super deep, so it is kind of easy to get flat tired. The insole that these come with from Allbirds is a quite thick foam, and again, I've worn these down for 2 years, so it was much squishier and bouncier when I first got these. This insole is where most of your comfort in these shoes is coming from, and then of course the material I find to be very comfortable as well. In comparison, this wool Piper, you can see it's sturdier, like the base is much larger. It feels like a heavier tennis shoe. It probably is if I weighed them. And then it has a bit of a chunkier profile and a deeper heel cup. Overall, I would say this is a more supportive shoe than the Skipper. I'm not sure which pair of these I will end up taking with me on my next trip to Walt Disney World, but I am fairly certain at least one of them is coming with me. Since we're on the topic of trendy internet shoe brands, let's go ahead and talk about Rothy's. So this is my pair of white slip-ons. I've had these for years. I'm not sure how long, but at least 3 years, probably more. They're a little dingy right now. I haven't washed them in a while. For those of you who don't know, Rothy's is a brand where they pride themselves on using recycled materials. I believe they take mostly plastic waste, bottles, and other things, and process it somehow to become this synthetic material that they make their shoes from. They also sell bags. You can fully put your shoes in the wash, which is kind of awesome. There is a midsole that you have to take out before throwing them in the washing machine, but it's very simple. These shoes are sturdy and they really don't rub hardly at all. I like Rothy's so much that I even have a pair of flats and a pair of loafers. They do have a lace-up style sneaker as well. I don't have one of those yet. So I can't speak for every Rothy style, but generally speaking, my experience has been very good. That being said, I would not take these to the parks. They're a great shoe for doing errands, running around, walking my dog. I kind of go to these a lot. These might be my go-to quick, just put them on type of sneaker. But they are made out of that synthetic material, which doesn't really breathe. I find Rothy's to be incredibly sweaty. It's bad enough at home in the summers, and of course the summers in Florida are even hotter and more humid. The other thing about this particular style of shoe, the slip-on, is that it's pretty heavy. Because I plan on doing really minimum 20,000 steps a day, I want a shoe that's a little bit lighter than this. Another one of my most loved shoes is classic Adidas All-Stars. These are the leather ones with the 3 stripes on the side and then the rubber toes. I love these shoes. I think they're incredibly comfortable. All-weather shoes, all-outfit shoes, really. I think they look good with shorts, pants, dresses, you name it. But again, it's quite a heavy shoe. It's got some heft to it for sure, so I don't really want to take the effort of lifting that every step for a 2-week vacation, when instead I could bring something like the Tree Skipper from Allbirds, which weighs probably a quarter as much. Let's talk about sandals. One of my most loved brands is Born. They make these really cute, thin sandals that are fun and pretty comfortable. But they are incredibly thin, so there's not a ton of support, and obviously you can't put an insert in here very easily. This is the kind of shoe I wear a lot at home. It's not a shoe I would necessarily take with me to Walt Disney World. They would be fine for walking around the resort, going to the pool, grabbing your morning coffee, but I'm not going to take these to a theme park, I don't think. And really same with flip-flops. I wear flip-flops all the time. These I believe are a Reef brand, but I have a ton of brands. They're all great, they're all comfortable. Who doesn't love a flip-flop? But I don't love a flip-flop in a theme park. I find that my shins and calves start to hurt a ton more if I'm wearing flip-flops for walking long distances compared to a tennis shoe or something more supportive. I do pack a pair of flip-flops to wear in the room, walk around the resort, go to the pool, that kind of thing, just to have a very easy shoe I can slip on quickly. But it's not something that you'll find me wearing in Disney's Hollywood Studios. I do like wearing sandals though, because then you get the breeze on your toes and you don't have to deal with the pain of socks. I just pick a chunkier, more supportive sandal. On the sportier looking side of things, these are Teva sandals. They're not the standard Tevas that are totally flat on the side. These are a sport version. I'll leave the full name in the description below. These have a very chunky sole. It's very supportive. You can't really bend it that much, which is a good thing incidentally. And then the lining for all of these straps is very soft. For me, with all sandals of this shape that aren't a T-strap, you do risk some rubbing on the sides, but if you get a T-strap sandal, you risk the rubbing in between your toes, so that's just kind of how it goes. Another favorite sandal option of mine are Chacos. I see these a lot in the park, so I think that's a fairly popular choice. Like the Tevas before, they're chunkier, they're more supportive, it's got a real sturdy sole. And they come in loads of different colors and styles, and you can even order a custom pair. I got these for a really great deal several years ago. I think they were almost half off. In the future, if I buy another pair, I probably will get one that doesn't have this toe loop. I find this toe loop is really the only place the straps ever rub my foot. They do sell a style that just goes straight across and doesn't have this extra loop for your big toe. In my opinion, Chacos are a fantastic pick for the parks. They're comfortable and supportive. I can easily walk 20 to 30,000 steps in these. They're also a great shoe for if it's going to rain. If there's a very high chance it's going to rain while I'm out in the parks, then I'm probably grabbing my Chacos. Then finally, for a cuter sandal option, I really like the Vionic brand. I took these ones with me on my last trip, and I don't know if they will make it to the next trip, but we'll see. And the trip prior, I had a different Vionic sandal that was a T-strap style. I really like both of them. Again, it's a chunkier, more supportive sole. There's not a ton of give. The brand overall, Vionic, also has a lot of podiatrist input into their designs. It's a little hard to tell on camera, but there's a pretty deep heel cup, and then there's actual arch support built into the shoe, which is not something you typically find in sandals. I like these ones a lot because they do have a dressier look. It's much cuter than a Chaco, for example. These are great with dresses or if we're going to a fancier meal. But I can still clock 20 to 30,000 steps in them and be comfortable. For this particular sandal style, I find this middle strap will sometimes rub a little bit on the edge of my foot, so you do have to make sure that they fit just perfectly. These straps are adjustable though, so take some time a couple months before your trip to figure out the exact settings for your sandals. I don't yet own a pair of Vionic sneakers, but that's definitely something I'm interested in. Shoe adjacent, let's briefly discuss socks. Obviously, I'm over picky when it comes to these things. You're talking to a girl who doesn't want to wear her trainers in the theme parks because she thinks they're ugly. Socks I'm also pretty peculiar about. I much prefer the sockless look, but I like wearing socks with sneakers. Even with shoes where they're designed where you don't have to wear socks like Rothy's and like Allbirds, I just prefer to wear the sock. I like looking for a no-show sock that doesn't have a harsh seam along the top of my foot. I find that will often dig in over the course of a long day and start to become very uncomfortable. I really like the Keds no-show socks. They have this flat lace seam on top. And they're also cut well to be pretty much no-show in my shoes. Recently, I bought Bombas for the first time. I got the lightweight no-show socks. I wear a 7.5 or 8 in most shoes, so according to that size chart, I went ahead and ordered the medium socks. These were too big though. There was extra fabric at the bottom and they were really not comfortable. Bombas customer service is great though, and they readily sent me over a pack of smalls. These fit, but they are actually quite tight. The lay flat seam on top is nice and I find it doesn't dig into my foot, which is great. But for being a no-show, there's actually quite a lot of sock. I definitely feel like you can see the Bombas peek out of many of my shoe styles. It's not the end of the world, but I think probably just because I'm in between sizes, Bomba is not the best fit for me. Then for a budget pick, I recently got these Old Navy active socks and I like these quite a lot. I do find that the heel slips off in some of my shoes, like it's always slipping off when I wear these socks with my Rothys. But then the fit is totally fine in other shoes. I'm not really sure what that's about. Maybe again, I'm in between sizes or something. But Old Navy often has pretty great sales, so these are some pretty comfortable socks you can get at a relatively low price. If you have favorite no-show sock brands, please do let me know. I'm always on the hunt for the perfect sock. Finally, let's discuss my shoe packing strategy. If I'm going to be down in the parks for more than 4 days or so, I actually usually pack 5 pairs of shoes. I know this sounds very excessive, but sit with me, we'll get through the reasoning. I pack 2 pairs of sandals, 2 pairs of sneakers, and 1 pair of flip-flops. I'm going to wear the biggest pair of sneakers, whichever one is the chunkiest, on the plane with me. So then only 4 pairs of shoes are actually making it into my luggage. Flip-flops, as I said before, are really so I just have something easy to wear around the room and resort when doing short little walks. Park shoes are those 2 pairs of sandals and 2 pairs of sneakers. So let's go over the logic there. The way I like to do Walt Disney World theme parks is by getting there pretty early in the morning, rope drop, or very close if we don't quite make that cutoff, and then spend several hours in the parks. Once we're hitting afternoon time, it's getting busier, I'm getting tired, we head back to the hotel for a midday break. And then once we get out of the hottest part of the day, we will head back to the parks. So every day is segmented into 2. Sometimes we will return to the same park, but the point is that there's a middle part where we are returning to the hotel. During this time, I'm going to change shoes. This means every day I'm wearing 2 separate pairs of shoes, and every day that usually is also a combo of sandal and sneaker. It depends on the weather, but I often find I do sandals in the morning and then sneakers in the evening. And then the next day I'll wear my 2 other shoes, the other sandal and other sneaker that I didn't wear this first day. This means across any given 2 days, I'm wearing 4 different pairs of shoes. Each pair gets worn roughly for a half day at the theme parks. I find that this rotation works very well for my feet, such that I'm not having the same rubbing spots every day. For example, if I start with these in the morning on day 1, I already mentioned that I'm prone to getting rubbing spots in this middle section here. Then when I go back to the hotel, I'll take these off. And when we're getting ready to go out again, I will switch shoe types. Typically it would be 2 sneakers, so then maybe I would wear my Allbirds. These are not going to rub in that same spot. So even if I have some slight irritation from the day, it's never long enough or for enough hours or steps to become an actual blister. Then the next day, again, I change profiles of shoes, so instead of going back to my Vionic sandals, we would change it up and go to the Chacos. These are going to rub here, not here. And then after some time in the parks wearing my Chacos, we'll come back to the hotel, rest, relax, and change shoes again. This pattern of switching shoes at least once during the day, as well as not wearing the same shoe day after day, really helps to avoid any sore spots on my feet. Then I have 2 final tips and tricks for you. One is if you are wearing sneakers or something that requires socks, I always bring an extra pair of socks with me into the parks. I'll usually put them in a small Ziploc bag just to make sure they don't get wet. If you're starting to feel some irritated areas from rubbing, changing socks can be really helpful. Then last, consider buying an anti-blister stick. I have this foot glide bar by Body Glide. Prior to this though, I had something from Dr. Scholl's that was very similar. I have no clue what this stuff actually is. It kind of feels like a slippery wax when you put it on, but it definitely helps make sure that you're not getting that rubbing. Usually I'll put this on any spots that I'm concerned about rubbing or that are already a little bit sore before I put my shoes on, but I'll also bring the stick with me into the parks. Preventing blisters is a big deal to me, and I absolutely think worth some preventative measures. For me, a blister can kind of ruin a vacation. These anti-blister sticks can be surprisingly expensive for how small they are, but they last a surprisingly long amount of time. I definitely think it's worth the investment. Let me know your shoe and sock related tips in the comments down below. I would love to hear some of your favorite brands and styles of shoes and socks. Are you practical? Do you take your trainers? Or are you the type of person that wants to wear a wedge into the parks? And how many pairs of shoes do you bring? Do you think 5 is excessive? I know it sounds excessive, but for me, really switching my shoes out midday every day and then not wearing the same pair of shoes on back-to-back days helps so much. Plus, hey, if I have the room in my suitcase for it, why not? Thanks so much to everyone who did leave a like on the video. If you enjoyed this content, please consider subscribing to the channel. You can ring the bell icon to receive notifications whenever I post new videos. I really appreciate interacting with you all. You certainly have helped the channel grow leaps and bounds. If you want to chat outside of YouTube, you can find me at PixieDustPhD over on Twitter and Instagram. I still have a bit of time before my next planned trip to Walt Disney World, definitely enough time to potentially buy a new pair of shoes and break them in. I am certainly considering retiring these Keds tennis shoes from the studio line. They've treated me very well, but they are quite worn out. I may replace them with another tennis shoe from the studio line from Keds, or maybe I'll try a Vionic shoe. Mostly, I'm really looking forward to hearing your suggestions below. Hopefully there's an entire world of comfortable, cute shoes that I've yet to explore. I hope the rest of your day is magical, and we'll see you real soon at Pixie Dust PhD.